KFMD Boca Raton, the Health and Wealth Radio Network.
Gallbladder problems, gingivitis, a bad back, indigestion, fatigue, low libido, not sleeping well, need to lose weight. Just some of the topics you'll hear about. Hi, I'm Dr. Bob Martin. Join me Sunday mornings at 10 on Talk 1470 WNN.
What is the Del Walmsley Radio Show?
Welcome to the Del Walmsley Radio Show, where the hype ends and the help begins. I'm your host, Del Walmsley, and as always, we're working on your financial freedom.
Listen to the Del Walmsley Radio Show, Mondays at 5, Tuesday through Friday at noon on WNN.
If you have investments and feel they haven't made enough for you to retire on, or if you just want to learn how extra money can be made from home, do what thousands of people have done. Hop in your car and head over to Online Trading Academy. Learn their patented rules-based strategy for trading. It shows how to pick the right investments like stocks, options, futures, and Forex. How they make money not only when they go up, but when they go down or sideways. And most important, learn how to limit the risk on all trades you make. Learn investing from professional traders in a classroom who are certified, currently trade, and profitable. They show you what they do every day to make income. See for yourself at a free half-day class at Online Trading Academy. They're all over Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach County. There's a free half-day class near you. Call now for a pair of free tickets. Online Trading Academy, 954-668-2510. 954-668-2510. 954-668-2510.
What you want to know. What you need to know. Talk 1470 WNN.
The opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors. Are you a family caregiver? Are you caregiving for someone who can no longer take care of themselves? Are you overwhelmed? This is Caregiver Solutions Info with Marcia Teal. Marcia will be hosting an hour of true stories and information, tips and updates of the latest research and necessary information in the caregiving field, focusing on you, the family caregiver. An Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert, Marcia has 15 years of hands-on experience at Arden Courts, a leader in assisted living dementia communities here in the U.S. Marcia covers everything you need to know as a family caregiver, especially if you care for a loved one with Alzheimer's disease or other related dementia or chronic illness. If you have a friend or relative that is also a family caregiver, call them now. They won't want to miss a minute. And let them know they can watch on caregiversolutions.info. And they can listen on WNN 1470 AM in South Florida or nationally on the iHeartRadio app. Now, sit back, relax, and learn from our host, Marcia Teal, as she brings information to you that may just be the caregiving solution you need.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Caregiver Solutions Info Show. I'm so glad that you could join us today. My name is Marcia Teal, and I'm your host for 3 years of bringing this show to the public for family caregivers and also for professionals that want to learn more about caregiving and how they can help their clients dealing with the challenges of caregiving for people with Alzheimer's or other types of dementia. Well, I have an awesome show for you today. We are live from Boca Raton, Florida, and the month of June, we are in June, is National Brain Awareness, National Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month. And so this show is going to be all about Alzheimer's and dementia and giving you information about what you can do to help others, what you can do to help find a cure. And we have a special guest calling in today, an inspiration. And my guests that are here today are very passionate about what they do. They are coming to us here in the studio from the Southeast Florida chapter of the Alzheimer's Association. And I'm so glad to welcome them today. In the studio, we have two people that one I've known for about 18 years, and the other I've known for about 18 minutes. And So glad to have them both with me today. I'd like to welcome Keith Gibson. He's the Director of Program Services, and Yuleika DeCastro, who's the Director of Marketing and Communications with the Southeast Florida chapter of the Alzheimer's Association. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having us here
Thank
today.
you for having us. I'm excited to be here.
I'm glad that you're here. This is such an important month. It's something that we do all the time. We try to do all the time is to educate, inform people about the different problems and issues and things that are going on with caregivers, but especially the month of June, being that you're really focusing on this. And there's a lot going on in the month of June. And so I'm so glad you're here to talk about it and share with us. So the first thing I'd like to start out with is, it is Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month. So what does that mean? Keith, tell us why we have a special month for this.
Well, it's a special month for a couple of reasons. One, it gives us an opportunity as an organization to spotlight, the need for awareness about this disease. And it also gives us another opportunity for us to celebrate one of our second largest signature fundraising events, the longest day, which is on June 21st, which is the summer solstice. So,
right. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a little while because we have a surprise guest calling in. But there's a lot going on, a lot of fundraising, a lot of awareness. Why is it important for people, not just people that are caregivers? Why is it important for everyone to be aware of Alzheimer's disease and other dementia?
Well, the statistics speak for itself. It's a sixth leading cause of death. Every 65 seconds, someone is diagnosed with this disease. 5.7 million Americans have this disease, and out of that 5.7 million Americans, 3.3 million of them are women. So, and until we find a cure or a way to slow this disease down, we need to operate with a sense of urgency. And we can do that by making everyone aware of the disease. And in light of what's going on today in our country and society, there's an uptick in mental health illnesses and things of that nature. And this is kind of like tied into Alzheimer's. And I think, the most important thing that we want to make sure people maintain their mental health, practice great mental health, because there's a lot of things going on today that could lead people the wrong direction.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I know many, many, many years ago when I first entered this interesting and challenging field, the police department, they would arrest people thinking that they were mentally challenged with some kind of psychotic issues and not understanding maybe the symptoms and the behaviors that go along with dementia. Somebody might have gotten arrested, put in jail, and treated differently than if they had known it was a person that had memory loss.
Absolutely.
And so education is the key. You mentioned some statistics, and I wanted to thank Yuleika for telling me about the new updated information and sharing this fact sheet, because now, it used to be 15.5 million people in the United States were diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, and now it's up to 16.1 million Americans that are providing care for people with Alzheimer's disease. So, obviously the numbers are increasing. It's the sixth largest cause of death in the United States, which is heart-wrenching. And it's costing caregivers $18.4 billion, valued at $232 billion. This is a very expensive disease. All diseases are expensive because they have a lot of medical conditions. They have a lot of tests. There's a lot of drugs. But why would Alzheimer's be so expensive for caregivers? Is it because they have to leave their jobs? What do you think?
There's multiple reasons. That's a multi-layered answer to that. Part of the reason is because they have so much stress on themselves that their own cost for their health increases. That's number one. Number two, people living with Alzheimer's disease can live a very long life. They could be completely healthy otherwise. It's just the dementia or the Alzheimer's that's affecting their brain. So those two factors play a big role as to why the cost of caring for people with Alzheimer's disease is so high.
Right, because Alzheimer's disease can last anywhere from 2 to 20 years, with the average being about 10 or 12.
Right.
So it's nothing that's going to be quick and fast. And so because of that, the timing and how much time it takes and all the efforts to care for somebody for a very, very long time, obviously the costs are rising.
And then going back to what you said, also plays a role is the fact that sometimes they have to leave the workforce to then become full-time caregivers. And so that not only puts the burden on the caregiver and the additional stress of that, but then there's also the added factor of now it's part of our overall economic expense as a nation. Because now we have to pay somehow, they're going to have to get care some way. So those are all economic factors that are also affecting it.
Yeah. And I think, too, more and more people are affected by Alzheimer's, maybe not directly right in their family, but extended family, neighbors, knowing friends. And so I think it's real important for everyone to learn about what's involved so that they can somehow be supportive and help, and maybe not directly because they're not able to, but indirectly.
And that's part of what Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month is about. It's about informing the public about ways they can help, even if they're not directly affected. We have a program called Trial Match, which someone who is completely healthy can participate in clinical studies. Now, sometimes people think that a clinical study requires you to take a pill or makes you have to drive somewhere. That is not the case. And so Trial Match is a program in which you can enroll, and it basically just puts you on a list, and they send you information about clinical trials in your area, and you can choose or not choose to do any of them. But also, people with healthy brains are needed for these clinical trials. If there is no trial, if there's no healthy brain to compare it to, they can't really do the study. So everyone can do a little bit of something to help us eradicate this disease.
You're right. And I love your shirt, your T-shirt. You're a very vibrant purple T-shirt. For those of you that are listening on the radio and can't see her beautiful purple shirt, because purple is the color that we use for Alzheimer's awareness, and it has #EndALZ, #EndALZ. I like that very much.
Thank you so much. And we'll be turning some buildings purple on June 21st for the longest day. Down in Fort Lauderdale, we'll have some buildings turning purple. Up here in Boca, we'll have some buildings turning purple in West Palm Beach. So if you see a building and it's purple on the 21st, it's because they are helping us raise awareness about Alzheimer's.
There you go. And I would say to everybody, wear purple.
Yes.
Everybody can wear purple on the 21st.
And if you are on social media, you can tag us at ALZFL. And we also have a beautiful frame that you can say, I support Alzheimer's Association, or I do this because we want to end alls. And that's a way that you can also help spread the word.
Wonderful. I love that very much. So getting back to people, how they can help. And, you know, it's important for people to understand the behaviors, obviously, but then there are people who are living it every day. They're a caregiver. Do you ever find in your travels and your dealings with caregivers, especially Keith, I know that you've been doing this a very, very long time, and you're very passionate and compassionate with caregivers. Why do some caregivers dig their head in the sand and not want to reach out or learn anything about what they're dealing with?
Well, the biggest thing I think is the fact that being a caregiver, you kind of like feel like you're in a very small group and that no one on the outside really and truly understands. But one of the things that I enjoy about what I do in my capacity with the Alzheimer's Association is to educate and to empower them, and telling them, even though our campaign is to find a first survivor, but I tell my caregivers, you are the survivors, and you have a story to tell, and you can help other caregivers. We encourage them to participate in any of our programs that we have, ranging from care consultations to support groups. We particularly encourage them to be very, very active because, you know, what better way to honor their loved one is by helping someone else that is still in the throngs of this journey, in this battle that they're in, because it's not going to be easy. But once they come through it and their loved one is in a better place, what better way to honor them is by helping someone else. Because one of the things that I realize when a caregiver is dealing with this initially, they're like, the question is, what do I do? Where do I go? And the most important question they ask is why? And I tell them, I said, you know what? It's nothing personal, okay? And you have a story to tell in regards to what you're dealing with, and you want to share that story. And that's one of the things that, it's not just the month of June, but in my opinion, every day is Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness, because we need to get the word out, and we need to operate with a sense of urgency, because until we find this cure or a way to slow this disease down, we have to make sure everyone talks about it and minimize it from being the elephant in the room that no one wants to talk about.
You're right, because I think sometimes caregivers are actually embarrassed to share their story, or they wonder what people will think of them. They feel guilty. They don't know even where to start. They don't know where to begin to be a caregiver, because it's nothing that you're trained for. You're just kind of thrown into the job, and it is a job.
Yep.
It's like the 36-hour day that the famous book, by Dr. Peter Rabins, who says it's a 36-hour day for caregivers. And in other words, it just goes on and on and on. And caregivers, they're different, because most of them try so hard, and most of them want to do the right thing. And sometimes it's just a matter of reaching out and being there and giving them that moral support.
Absolutely.
So for us, one of the things that we have found is that it takes about 2 years for a caregiver to ever reach out to us. And that's why we do this Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month, because we don't want them to have to go through those 2 years by themselves. And we have a 24/7 helpline that they can call us, which is 800-272-3900. They can call us at any time of the day or night, and someone who is a master's level clinician will answer the phone and talk to them for as long as they need.
Wow, what a great resource. So that's important, and we're going to repeat that at the end of the program. So if you didn't get that number, then get a pencil ready and you can write that down. So we're going to take our first quick commercial break, but stay tuned. We have lots more to share.
Arden Courts is not just a place to live, it's a place to call home. Residential living combined with quality caregiving. This is the philosophy behind Arden Courts. Communities created exclusively for individuals with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia who would benefit from a safe and structured environment. For additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides, call 888-478-2410 to locate a community nearest you. Inquire about our educational seminars, resource library, or support groups, or simply feel free to ask questions you may have about Alzheimer's and related dementias. At Arden Courts, we know, we understand, and we can help, because memory care is all we do. Remember, call 888-478-2410 for additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides.
Hi, I'm Michael Mole, owner of Senior Helpers of South Palm Beach. Senior Helpers is dedicated.
The inability to recognize the obvious often occurs with Alzheimer's, particularly among the family members who care for them. When the time comes for you to decide that someone you love needs more help than you can give, will you be able to recognize it? Don't wait for a crisis to make the decision for you. Talk to us. We know. We understand. We can help. Arden Courts.
giversolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
We are back, and my guest today in the studio live from Boca Raton, Florida. I have Keith Gibson and I have Yuleika DeCastro, and they're both from the Southeast Florida chapter of the Alzheimer's Association. Keith is Director of Program Services, and Yuleika is in the Communication Marketing Division, and they both help hundreds, if not thousands, of caregivers on a monthly basis. So thank you all again for being here today. Yuleika, I want to go back again to a little bit more about the research, because we know that the Alzheimer's Association is really pushing forward and striving to find a cure for Alzheimer's disease. And just last week, I think it was, in the newspaper, I read that 2 major drug companies have just discontinued some clinical trials that they were doing, trying to find a cure, and they just basically took it off the table because it wasn't working. What's the implications of this?
Well, when we hear, those news stories come out, it's always very disheartening because we're all hopeful. The vision of the Alzheimer's Association is a world without Alzheimer's. And the only way to get that world without Alzheimer's is to fund the research so that we can end it and find the cure. So when we hear those stories, it really makes us all very sad. However, we have to look at the bright side here. The fact that we know that that one didn't work now allows us to look in other directions and look for things that might work instead of continuing to focus on something that did not work. Now, at the Alzheimer's Association, we are the second largest funders of Alzheimer's research in the United States. So we're very proud of that, and that's all done by our fundraising efforts through the Longest Day, which I know we'll talk about in just a few minutes.
Walks.
And our walk to end Alzheimer's that happens in the fall. But we are looking for a way to end this disease, and one of the ways that we do that is through our Alzheimer's Association International Conference, where scientists and researchers from all over the world actually come to our conference. This year is taking place just next month in July in Chicago. Last year it was in London. So we move it around so that people have the opportunity from all parts of the world to share information about the research that they are doing, so that if they hear somebody's doing something and they've already reached some kind of conclusion, then they can take that information and build from it instead of starting from scratch. So we are working really diligently with as many people as possible to not only fund but also speed it and accelerate the way we get this Alzheimer's research done.
Well, that's great. So you're bringing all the big brains, the big research companies, the doctors, the scientists all together.
Yes.
And I think that's wonderful, and I hope and pray that one day they will be successful.
And here in Southeast Florida, we're actually really lucky because we have some of the best researchers doing the research here in our hometown. And so we are very optimistic. When we hear the stories of failed clinical trials, we have to understand that that's sometimes what you need in order to get to the right one.
Yeah, that's true. Keith, do you find working with caregivers that they are afraid of doing clinical trials, or are they more optimistic about it and want to participate or have their loved ones participate? What are they telling you?
Well, first and foremost, they are not aware of the clinical trials. And one of the things that we encourage in all of our program, we talk to them about the trial match programming. And in addition to that, the other different types of clinical trials that are going on around our area. Like there was one that I know that the Palm Beach Neurological Group is doing on anxiety. That's pretty amazing. I learned about that just last month. And so I was like, wow, if they treat the different aspects of the disease, they will find that it may have some sort of impact. So we just can't just look at, just the drug aspect of it. We have to look at the various other types of aspects. And I like what Yuleika said. When 1 or 2 clinical trials fails, there are other ones that will now get the shining attention for. So I think that, in itself. But getting back to your question, Marsha, the fact that caregivers, they just don't know.
Okay.
And so when we talk to them through our services, particularly through our care consultations, we let them know that, hey, you yourself may need to be involved in cognitive assessment. And I'm so excited because January of this year, the CMS has finalized a permanent billing code for cognitive assessment and care and support planning, where clinicians, meaning physicians and nurse practitioners, can bill for cognitive assessment and care and support planning. That is huge, because now there is no excuse for not getting yourself tested. And I encourage them to get themselves tested, because this is the attitude that they have. Oh, I don't want to find out because, if I find out, oh, it's the end of the world. But I say, no, that is not true. That's where the association comes in. We have so many wonderful services. We are, as I always say, we're the boots on the ground. We provide that hope until that cure is found. And so they're not alone. We provide that support that's so much needed.
Yes. I think that's important, because with the passing of that law, now I think primary care physicians are going to be more inclined to do some kind of initial cognitive testing to kind of catch it early, don't you think?
Absolutely. And again, our physicians actually are one of the barriers in this disease diagnosis, because they don't really feel comfortable about, what do I do when I tell my client, my patient, that they have the disease? So we're so excited also, too, about another physician outreach program that we have, which is called Next Steps. We talk to the physicians and say, hey, listen, we know that you guys are going to do a great job with the clinical aspect of it, but we want you, let us to step in and help you support your patients by making them aware of the social services and the planning part that they need, because we have planning that can range from legal and financial planning to actually care and support planning. So there's all these different services that are readily available, but we need to be able to talk to them about it. And so that's where we let the physicians know that, hey, let us do the social work. Let us do the grunt work. You've already done the clinical side. Let us do that other part.
I think that's awesome, because you're right. A lot of people get that diagnosis, and then it's like, uh-oh, what do I do now? Where do I go? And if the physicians, they don't have the time, they don't always have the resources to be able to hold the patient's hand and direct them, because it is time consuming.
And that's one of the things that we say, Alzheimer's take time. We have the time. We have people like Keith and his staff that will sit with you and give you a care consultation one-on-one and walk you through, navigate, and help you navigate this disease from the legal and financial standpoint. And then part of that is also getting that early diagnosis, so that the doctors will say, hey, you might want to get some information. And that early diagnosis allows you the opportunity to be able to be a participant in your own care for the future. So it's really important that people go out, see your doctors. If you're seeing any of the signs, you can go on our website, which is alz.org/10signs, and find out if you're having some kind of symptoms that are making something's wrong, or if you're seeing that in your family member. It is important that you get yourself checked out.
You're absolutely right. We've listed the 10 signs of Alzheimer's disease and on the show before. Okay. And I think that sometimes people see these signs, but they brush them off as, oh, that's just, him, or, oh, he's having a bad day, or, oh, it must be me. And they come up with all of these excuses. And I think some of the excuses are because they're afraid to go to the doctor to get the testing, because then, like what you said before, Keith, what's next? And so now with this new program that you are reaching out to the physicians, they do have a what's next. They do have next steps.
Yeah. And the biggest thing the biggest fear that I see amongst our elderly population today is to get tested, because, okay, I've now got the diagnosis. Does that mean my life is over? And I talked to them and I said, you know what? It's about managing the disease, because we have some wonderful volunteers that are in the early stages of the disease pathology, and they have been able to manage it and have a very full, active lifestyle. And if they were sitting right next to us in this room, you would know that they have the disease. And that's amazing, because they've done an excellent job about managing the disease. And to me, that's key, to manage it and to know that I can still have a quality of life. And so that's one of the things that brings me a great deal of joy, when I can talk to someone and let an elderly person know, Alzheimer's and dementia is not a normal part of aging. So, but cognitive decline is because, that's part of the aging process. But with that too, you can manage it. And so, like I said, I get a lot of joy out of what I do.
It's obvious. Thank you. And I like what you said. The key word is manage, because right now we can't stop it. We don't know what really causes it. I mean, there's inflammation of the brain and what causes inflammation and sugar and all these different things. But we don't have a cure. We don't know how to stop it. Some of the drugs that are out are supposed to slow it down, but who knows, and how long are they good for as far as the efficacy of them. So the management is the key. So when people get diagnosed early, Keith, they think, well, this is not good. Why would I want to know? Why would I want to know if I have Alzheimer's? Or why would I want to know if my young husband, has it? Because more and more we're seeing early onset Alzheimer's. But I think that the key that you said is to manage it, because there are things you can do and put in place, not only medications, right, but caregiver education to learn, how do I respond to this person I've been married to for 50 years, and all of a sudden they're acting like a stranger to me, and I don't know what to do. And so when you mentioned about having people come in and sitting here by us, and you wouldn't necessarily know that they had dementia, it's because their caregiver, I think a lot of times, have educated themselves and know how to manage some of the behavior, so they're not overreacting, or they're not trying to argue with the person and correct them, because that causes problems and all of that. So manage is the key, because it makes a world of difference.
It does. It really does. And, and it gives them that hope, and again, one of the things I always recommend to our caregivers is to understand it's the disease. And, they themselves have to change, because their loved one is changing right before their eyes. So they can either be part of that change, or they can be on the outside of that change, and it will definitely have a very negative effect as well.
Yeah, not only on the person with the dementia, but on the caregiver too.
Absolutely.
Because they're a unit.
They are a unit.
And I think caregivers that manage it better and educate themselves have less stress. They're still going to have stress. It's
Absolutely.
Very but they're going to have less stress because of the way they can manage
Once
it.
they get the additional training and the additional information, they really have the opportunity, and they allow themselves to have those moments, because even when someone is living with Alzheimer's disease, they have those moments where they are themselves again, and you have the opportunity to let yourself enjoy those moments once you understand that this is not them, this is the disease, and they still love me, they're in there, and those moments of clarity are going to fill you with so much joy. And once you understand those different steps that you can take to train yourself better, which you can always find on our website at alz.org, you can then allow yourself to enjoy them.
Very well said. Thank you. We're going to take another quick commercial break, and we'll be back with lots more, so stay with us.
Wandering is a common problem for people with Alzheimer's or related dementias. It's also a problem for family members who care for them. Keeping them safe and secure means never letting your guard down. And even though deep down you know it's time, it hurts to have to ask for help. But it could hurt them even more if you didn't. We know. We understand. We can help. Arden Courts. The inability to recognize the obvious often occurs with Alzheimer's, particularly among the family members who care for them. When the time comes for you to decide that someone you love needs more help than you can give, will you be able to recognize it? Somewhere at the... Don't wait for a crisis to make the decision for you. Talk to us. We know. We understand. We can help. Arden Courts. Corner of bewildered and confused is a lost mother, a father, a sibling, a grandparent. Wandering is a common symptom of Alzheimer's or related dementias, and can often make those who care for a loved one feel just as lost. If you're looking for a place that's safe and secure, often occurs with Alzheimer's or related dementias, even among their caregivers. When the time comes for you to decide that someone you love needs more help than you can give, will you be able to recognize it? Don't wait for a crisis to make the decision for you. Talk to Arden Court.
We are back, and I want to take this opportunity to thank our national sponsor, Arden Court's Memory Care Communities. Arden Courts has about 50 memory care assisted living communities across the United States, and they have 10 right here in Florida. They are so wanting to not only educate, but to be there for your loved one, but also for you. They have the experience. They understand. They've been around for about 23, 24 years, and dementia and caregiving is all they do. So one of the things that Arden Courts would like to offer you today, just for joining in to our program, is giving you a copy of this book. It's called The 36-Hour Day. It was written by Dr. Peter Rabins and Nancy Mace, and is a wonderful resource for caregivers. This book talks about the difference between the different types of dementias. It talks about different behaviors that you may experience in your caregiving days. It talks about how you can help your loved one along the way. It's a really good book. And so if you're a family caregiver or you know a family caregiver that could benefit from this book, then you'll want to call the toll-free number of Arden Courts and ask for your free copy. So that number is 888-478-2410. 888-478-2410, and tell them that you heard about the offer on the Caregiver Solutions Info Show, and they'll be happy to get your name and address and make sure they mail a book outright to you. So today we're talking about Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month. We're talking about the research that's going on through the Alzheimer's Association, why it's important for caregivers to participate and people that have healthy brains to participate. We've talked about that. We've talked about a lot of things that caregivers need and how we can support them. So next, I'd like to talk about something called The Longest Day. And so with me, I have Keith Gibson and Yuleika DeCastro from the Southeast Florida Alzheimer's Association. And so, Yuleika, what is The Longest Day?
The Longest Day is literally the longest day. And it's kind of like the book that you're talking about, 36-Hour Day. We chose that day, which is June 21st, because it is the longest day of the year. And for caregivers, every day feels like the longest day. And so on the longest day, we ask people to do what they love to honor the person that they love. So people choose to do baking. So I've seen people do a whole week's worth of baking and then deliver it on the longest day to the people who ordered it for them. So it's a do-it-yourself fundraiser where you get to do whatever you love in honor of the person that you love. We have someone who does a piano event because their grandmother was a piano teacher. So all of her students come out for a whole day and they play piano or they do a piano concert. And it's just whatever makes you happy in order to help us raise funds so that we can do that research to help find the cure.
Wonderful. And that day is coming up this Thursday.
It is.
It's almost here. We actually have a caller that has called in on the phone. Her name is Wynn, and she's going to tell us her story. Hello, Wynn.
Hi, yes.
Hi, welcome. Thank you for calling into the Caregiver Solutions Info Show.
Thank you for inviting me. It's awesome to be here.
Great. So we're talking about the longest day, and we know that it's coming up Thursday, and I wanted to ask you, what's your experience with Alzheimer's?
Well, my grandfather was diagnosed with Alzheimer's and spent the last 8 years of his life in a nursing home. And my father was diagnosed 2011, I believe. So he's had it for several years, and I've better able to witness firsthand what's going on with him, as I was younger when my grandfather had Alzheimer's.
Does your father live in the same town as you?
No, he lives in North Carolina, which is in his hometown, which is actually really helpful because he grew up there and he knows the area very well. So that's really been helpful for him.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. It's just very hard on families. How has your father's diagnosis impacted your family, both near and far?
Well, I just saw him this past week. I visited with him and my stepmother in North Carolina and had a good chance to talk a little bit with my stepmother. And, she made the comment that this really wasn't how she wanted to retire, but she's making the best of it. I think they had a lot of dreams. And so with his diagnosis coming pretty early, he was 66, I think, when he got diagnosed. Those dreams had to quickly be put to rest. And, as for me, it's just sad. Here's a man that raised me, that I looked up to, who was brilliant and very driven, very much a go-getter, accomplished many things in his life, and he's in the middle stages now, and he's a sweetheart. But he asked me the same questions repeatedly, and he's not able to really have complex conversations anymore, and he's just very simple. So I've had to really adjust my expectations of interactions with him to where he's at and what he seems to be able to give.
Yeah, you definitely need to do that. I'm glad that that's something that you're able to do. And have you found that learning more about Alzheimer's disease and what to expect has helped you to change those expectations?
Yes. I have done some reading on my own, and I'm also a mental health professional. And I also recall my grandfather. And so when I, learned of my father's diagnosis, I was definitely sad. I mean, it was definitely difficult. But fairly early on, I just said, okay, this is what's going to happen. This is how it's going to be. And I'm just going to ride, and meet him where he's at.
Very good.
And that enables me to really enjoy him, because I don't have the expectations that he's going to be, capable like he once was. I can enjoy him where he is, and he's very much in the moment. He really enjoys what's happening around him. He's able to participate to an extent, and that's okay for me. It's okay right now.
That's wonderful. We have here in the studio representatives from the Southeast Florida chapter of the Alzheimer's Association, and they're sitting here listening to you on the telephone and shaking their heads like, yes, she's got the right idea. She understands. She's doing, what she can do. She's enjoying him, and I want to applaud you for that, for being that daughter who can embrace him where he's at. So tell me, you have a special event that you're doing for the longest day coming up on Thursday. What is it, and what prompted you to do it?
The name of it is called Yoga for Yaya. And I think most people know that Yaya is a Greek term for grandmother. So the story behind that is, when I got the email about participating in the longest day, I looked on June 21st, and it was a Thursday. And I said, well, I always do yoga on Thursday night at 8 o'clock. And so I contacted Lourdes Sanchez, who's the owner of Om Yoga Wellness. And she said, absolutely, we'll make a donation class. So the name just came to me, Yoga for Yaya, the alliteration, even though the truth for me personally is yoga for Dada and yoga for Grandpa, but that doesn't really have the same ring to it. So there's plenty of Yayas out there that need a little yoga, I think. So,
yeah, and yoga, what's funny, too, I read somewhere that Thursday is not only the longest day, but it's also International Yoga Day.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I just read that too.
Yeah, so it's like perfect timing. So can other people participate in your Yoga for Yaya and help raise funds or donate? And if so, how can they do that?
Absolutely. The yoga portion is at Om Yoga Wellness, which honestly I don't have the address in front of me, but it's in Northwood. And they can go to a class. If they're already a member, they can donate money. There's going to be a special class at 6:45 that's specifically collecting donations for this event. And that's for those that want to try yoga or who normally do yoga, they can do that. If that's not for them, I think the easiest way to direct people is to the Facebook fundraising page.
Okay. Well, they also have, I have their telephone number for Yoga and Wellness Studio in West Palm Beach. So anybody out there listening wants to give them a call to get more information, that number is area code 561-410-0162. And this is a great way to give back, get a little de-stressed with some yoga. You don't have to be a yogi to do it, right, Wen? You just have to show up.
Absolutely.
And I want to thank you so much for coming on and telling us your story, sharing that, how you're dealing with it. I want to wish you all the best to you and your family. Good luck with the yoga for Yaya. We love that. It's awesome. And so I hope that in the future, you know, we'll have a lot more stories and happy exercises and events to raise money, not only on the longest day, but, you know, every day. So anybody wants to participate, give Studio a call. If you want to just make a donation for the longest day, you can go to alz.org, alz.org, make a donation in memory of your loved one or in honor of your loved one to the Alzheimer's Association. Thank you, Wen, so much, and hope you have a good event.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, take care. Okay, we're going to take a last commercial break, and we'll be right back with more from the Alzheimer's Association.
Wandering is a common problem for people with Alzheimer's or related dementias. It's also a problem for family members who care for them. Keeping them safe and secure means never letting your guard down. And even though deep down you know it's time, it hurts to have to ask for help. But it could hurt them even more if you didn't. We know. We understand. We can help. Arden Courts. The inability to recognize the obvious often occurs with Alzheimer's, particularly among the family members who care for them. When the time comes for you to decide that someone you love needs more help than you can give, will you be able to recognize it? Don't wait for a crisis to make the decision for you. Talk to us. We know. We understand. We can help. Arden Courts. Somewhere at the corner of bewildered and confused is a lost mother, a father, a sibling, a grandparent. Wandering is a common symptom of Alzheimer's or related dementias and can often make those who care for a loved one feel just as lost. If you're looking for a place that's safe and secure, look to Arden Courts. Memory care is all we do. We know. We understand. We can help. To learn more, visit arden-courts.com. Arden Courts follows equal housing opportunity guidelines. Being unable to recognize the obvious often occurs with Alzheimer's or related dementias, even among their caregivers. When the time comes...
If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
The inability to recognize the obvious often occurs with Alzheimer's, particularly among the family.
And we are talking to representatives from the Southeast Florida chapter of the Alzheimer's Association, Keith Gibson and Yuleka DeCastro, about brain health, about fundraising, about research, about all the things that are so important that everyone should know and things that you can do to help. So we just heard from the caller when she's doing an event for the longest day, which is this Thursday. And it's a fundraiser day. It's a special day because it is the longest day of the year for summer. And it's the longest day because, like you said, it is a long day for caregivers. So this in itself raises awareness for people, and people are all over the country are participating in their own way to do their own fundraising, however that might be, and I think that's awesome. But if someone doesn't want to do that, they don't feel that they can do their own fundraising, there's other ways that they can contribute, and one of them is the matching gift challenge.
Yeah.
And do you want to talk about that?
Sure. So there's a whole bunch of different ways in which you can help. One of which is we talked about the longest day. We also have our walks to end Alzheimer's, which happen in the fall here in Southeast Florida. But there's also ways that you can do it via your social media channels. I know Facebook has a matching gift that you can say, hey, I'm raising money for Alzheimer's, and if I'm going to match up to $250, and then people in their circle can donate. And that's one simple way in which you can help raise funds to help us cure this disease.
That's wonderful. I know that the National Alzheimer's Association put an email out there saying that there was an anonymous donor who donated $50,000 if by June 30th that the chapters can raise enough money to match that they would double the donation. So if you would donate $25, then they'll match it to $50. So it's a matching gift, which is a great opportunity to double your money and double the amount of contribution.
And double your efforts. And it's a great thing. When we have generous donations like that, it's amazing. And the fact that you, wherever you are, whether you have the time to do your own fundraiser or you have, your family is all spread out and you want to do it separately, this is one way in which you can still have your voice heard.
That's right. And speaking of having your voice heard, let's talk a minute about advocacy. I know you all are passionate about what you do, but how do you inspire others to be advocates for Alzheimer's awareness?
So that's another one of the things that we do. So we fundraise, we do research, and we go to Capitol Hill and we speak to congressmen and congresswomen and talk to them about the ways that they can help us increase the funding, the federal funding, to help us research this disease and help eradicate it. Right now, we're very proud that the state of Florida has the second highest delegation in the nation over in D.C. right now, meeting with Congress in Florida from all over Florida. From Southeast Florida, we have close to 25 people that attended and made the trip to Washington, D.C. We have people who are living with Alzheimer's disease, people who are caregivers. The youngest person who has made this trip is 14 years old and is advocating for us and speaking to Congress about giving us the funding that we need in order to be able to do the research to end it.
And these are volunteers.
They're all volunteers. They're all giving their time. I have one volunteer. Her name is Jonna, and she is there because she's had 11 cases of Alzheimer's in her family.
Wow.
And she just doesn't want to have to deal with it anymore. And none of us do. So advocacy is another way that you just writing a letter to your congressperson and let them know, your representative, let them know that you care about this, that this affects you, and that they need to do something to help us end it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Keith, I know you do a lot of your own advocacy out in the community because one of your duties as the program services manager is to educate. So how do you advocate to the public?
Well, advocacy is something that's near and dear to my heart because I believe that I am an ambassador for the elderly. And so the way that I advocate is I empower people and educate them to get off the sidelines and get into the game. They can no longer walk around and say, well, it doesn't affect me. Yes, it does. And even talking to, I've made it a very purposeful mission for me to talk to the young. They need to know about this disease because it's just a little bit more than forgetfulness. It's, again, like I said, it's how we manage our cognition, our processing of information. And so if we don't replenish our ranks by not talking to them, then how will they know? And unfortunately, there are two segments of our society that are at risk right now. That's our young and our elderly. And so we need to bridge the gap and, help each other. And so, any opportunity that I get, I talk about all the wonderful things that we're doing as an organization, from the new billing code that is now permanent. And that came as a result of our public policy advocacy and our one arm of our public policy, which is AIM. That's very, very important because that allows for us to be able to talk to the legislators and let them know, hey, you guys got to get involved. And, and that's producing results because I believe this year we got an announcement about a couple of weeks ago from our CEO that we are going to be possibly getting over $400 million added to research.
Wow.
So that was State Appropriations Committee. They've passed that. Now it has to go to the Senate. It has some other steps that it has to go through, but it's a $401 million increase that takes us just over the $2 billion amount that scientists and people at the NIH have said that we need in order to get started, to start scratching at the surface.
That's
so
great
we're getting
news.
there.
Yeah, it is.
We're getting there, and that's part of the advocacy, that work that we do. And that's why the voices of everyone listening right now, writing that letter to your Congress representative, let them know that you care and that you want them to give this funding. And it's so important. And another part of what Keith does is that he goes out there and he educates, whether it's at a corporation, whether it's at a hospital, whether it's a support group. He goes out there and lets people know, hey, if this is happening to you, this is what you can do. You mentioned early in the program about when you first started how police used to arrest people because, we go out there and we talk about first responders and how they can act and what they can do in order to recognize people that have the disease.
So if someone wants more information, if someone wants to maybe set up a speaking engagement, how can they do that?
It's simply enough, go to a 1-800 number.
That number is 800-272-3900, 800-272-3900, or they can always go on our website, which is alz.org.
alz.org, everybody. Don't forget that. Don't forget the longest day coming up this Thursday, June 23rd. 21st, the longest day. Don't forget your neighbors, friends, family that are actually dealing with being a caregiver or have Alzheimer's disease or some related dementia. Don't forget them. Just pick up the phone, give them a call, because sometimes it's just the simplest thing that you can do. If you can't do anything else, you make a phone call, make a donation, anything that you can do, you'll feel good about it, right?
Awesome.
I want to thank you both for being here today. You both are awesome. Good luck with all of your efforts. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for having us, Marsha.
And I appreciate you all, too, tuning in to the show, whether it's via your radio or your computer. Don't forget to call and get the book, The 36-Hour Day, 888-478-2410. And in the meantime, don't forget, give somebody a hug because they need it, and so do you. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us for this week's Caregiver Solutions with Marsha Teal. Join us next week as Marsha, who has 15 years of Alzheimer's disease and dementia care experience, brings you more needed information to help with the care of your loved one. This show can be seen again on caregiversolutions.info, and questions can be left on the site, which may be used on the program to help others. See you next week for more Caregiver Solutions.